Have you ever stopped to wonder what actually makes a person intelligent? I mean, really think about it. A lot of the time, we just assume being smart means you're great at math, you have a massive vocabulary, or you can score off the charts on a traditional IQ test. But I'm willing to bet you know someone who is incredibly book smart, like they can ace absolutely any exam you hand them, but when it comes to just navigating the real world, they completely lack street smarts. So why is that? Does that make them less intelligent, or are they just smart in a totally different way? Well, let's dive into this explainer and completely rethink our definition of human intelligence.
Welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a revolutionary framework that completely redefines what it means to be truly smart. We are going to explore the Triarchic Theory of Intelligence. This was a groundbreaking model proposed by psychologist Robert Sternberg back in 1985. It completely moves us away from that old idea of a single, static intelligence score, and instead paints a much richer, much more dynamic picture of how our minds actually work. Here is our roadmap for today. Number 1. Rethinking what makes us smart. Number 2, the Triarchic Theory explained. Then, we'll break things down into analytical, creative, and practical intelligence. And finally, number 6, the information processing approach. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, Rethinking what makes us smart.
And that leads us right into Section 2, the Triarchic Theory explained.
So, Robert Sternberg looked at traditional intelligence tests and saw some pretty major limitations. He decided we needed a revolutionary new definition. Sternberg defines intelligence as, and I quote, the ability to adapt, to shape, and select environment to accomplish one's goals and those of one's society and culture. I want you to really think about that for a second. Intelligence isn't just facts sitting passively in your head. It is a highly active, dynamic process of interacting with your surroundings. It's about accomplishing your goals and actually fitting into your specific cultural context. So how exactly do we break down this active process? Well, Sternberg did it through the Triarchic Theory of Intelligence. Notice that prefix there, tri. That tells us we're looking at 3 distinct basic types of intelligence: componential, experiential, and contextual. Now, I know those sound like incredibly dense academic terms right now, but don't worry. We're going to translate every single one of them so you can see exactly how they show up in your own life. The elements of this theory really map out how intelligent behavior works across the board. You got the contextual subtheory, which deals with what behaviors are considered smart in a specific culture. Then there's the experiential subtheory, mapping out how our past experiences actually affect our intelligence. And finally, the componential subtheory, which looks at the underlying cognitive processes. Those cognitive processes actually break down even further into meta-components, performance components, and knowledge acquisition components. It's basically a complete blueprint of the mind. So let's start unpacking this, beginning with that componential side. Section 3, Analytical Intelligence. This is the much more common, everyday term for what Sternberg originally called componential intelligence. Analytical intelligence is essentially what we all recognize as traditional school smarts. We're talking about the ability to analyze information, think critically, and solve complex problems. People who are highly analytical are the ones who just thrive in academic environments. You hand them a complicated problem, and they can easily break it down into logical parts and pinpoint the correct answer. Now, this analytical intelligence doesn't just happen all at once. It operates in 3 distinct sequential steps. First up is the knowledge acquisition component. This is just the learning phase, figuring out how to do a new thing. Second is the meta, or higher order component. Think of this as the planning phase, where your brain is deciding exactly what to do and how you're going to do it. And third is the performance component. This is where you actually execute the plan and do the thing. So it's basically learn, plan, do. That is your analytical brain at work. Moving on to Section 4, Creative Intelligence, or in Sternberg's original terms, Experiential Intelligence. Creative intelligence is all about using your past experiences creatively to solve completely novel, brand new problems. Highly creative people don't just rely on what's in a textbook. They take all these different, seemingly unrelated past experiences and integrate them in a totally original way to make new discoveries and inventions. If you throw them into a totally unfamiliar situation, someone with high creative intelligence can quickly figure out exactly which pieces of information are actually crucial to solving the puzzle. They are the ultimate outside-the-box thinkers. Next up, Section 5, Practical Intelligence. Out of the 3, this is probably the most relatable pillar because it shifts us entirely out of the classroom and right into the real world. To put it simply, practical intelligence is street smartness or business sense. And I love that the source material uses those exact analogies because they just hit the nail on the head.
This isn't about solving abstract math equations or building a new invention. This is about having the savvy to deal with the environmental demands you encounter every single day. It's the ability to read a room, navigate a tricky conversation, or just figure out the absolute best way to get things done at your job.
Let's contrast these two non-academic intelligences for a second. Experiential or creative intelligence is all about the new. It solves novel problems and creates new inventions. Contextual or practical intelligence is all about the now. It deals with everyday environmental demands. So one builds the future, while the other masterfully navigates the present.
So, how exactly do you use practical intelligence in real life? Well, it comes down to three core behaviors. First, you adapt to your present environment. You figure out the rules of the game and you play them incredibly well. Second, if the environment is bad, you select a more favorable environment. You know exactly when it's time to walk away and find a better situation. Or third, you modify the existing environment to fit your needs. You just change the game entirely to suit you. Mastering these three behaviors is exactly why practically intelligent people turn out to be highly successful in life, absolutely regardless of what grades they got in school. And finally, Section 6, the information processing approach.
Historically, a lot of older theories of intelligence used what's called a psychometric approach. Basically, they only cared about measuring the final result, that static test score or IQ number. But Sternberg's Triarchic Theory, it represents the information processing approach. It actually looks under the hood. It cares about the dynamic, internal processes of how your brain handles information. It asks, how do you plan? How do you create? How do you adapt to your surroundings? It focuses on the mental mechanics behind intelligent behavior, which makes it a much more comprehensive, realistic way to understand human potential.
So, the absolute biggest takeaway from this explainer is that intelligence is definitely not just one thing. It's an incredible combination of your ability to analyze, your ability to create, and your ability to practically adapt to the world around you. Now that you've got a handle on Sternberg's Triarchic Theory, I want to leave you with a question to ponder. Which of the three is your strongest? Are you driven more by analytical, creative, or practical intelligence? Take a minute to evaluate your own profile, because recognizing your unique strengths is absolutely the first step to truly mastering your environment. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.